it's getting towards the end of June, and that means we're right in the heart of food plot season. Right in the heart meaning that a lot of people have planted food plots that are going to fail already before the season even begins, before we get to the end of summer. And there's several reasons why. At the same time, this is a big buying time of the year. People are buying a lot of food plot seed the end of June, July. We have our food plot company, WHS Wildlife Blends. I urge you to check out the site. But really important to make sure you're on track with your food plots, because I would say, just in working with clients, I've worked with over 1,400 clients. Joe, Kevin, Dylan, work with clients every year, over 300 a year between all of us. And we see just an enormous amount of food plot failures. And there's so many reasons. We're going to go over some of the do's and don'ts of food plots. But I would say, you know, this is maybe a bold statement, but I would say that 80 to 90% of all food plots fail for some reason on a given year, just widespread. Just general food plots. You know, there's the people out there that throw a lot of money out, and they plant the perfect bean field and the perfect cornfield. We see a lot of rotations on big properties, big parcels around here like that. You see that in ag country where someone owns 1,000 acres. Well, they just rotate bean and corn, maybe some hay mixed in, and well, those food plots turn out really nice. But just because you have food plots that grow and grow well doesn't mean that it's a great food plot. And there's several reasons why. Just not even talking about the do's and don'ts of planting and making sure with food plots. We can go into so many more on here. These are just some that hit me. You know, if you're spooking deer off your food plots, it's a failure. If you have to walk through your food plots to get somewhere, it's a failure. If you can't hunt your food plots, it's a failure. We have the top 5 fails and do's and don'ts of food plotting. If you're displacing buck bedding because you're planting a food plot in a bedding area, it's a failure. If your food plot's putting deer on your neighbors during the daylight, it's a failure. So there's a lot of reasons to fail. But when it comes to actually planting, we're going to go over these do's and don'ts right here. So critical that you be very mindful of the food plot strategy. And just because you have a beautiful field of green doesn't mean that you planted the perfect food plot. There's a lot of strategy that takes place. First off, don't ignore weeds. Just because you have some weeds, say like ragweed, goldenrod in your food plots during the summertime and the deer like to munch on it, doesn't mean that your food plots are not a failure. In fact, all those weeds are gone. Their attractiveness, nutritional value is all gone during the fall, when you actually can mold and shape a deer hunt and a herd. So if you care about a quality herd, if you care about a quality hunt, those two together go together. That means you have to have good food plots during the fall. The rest of the year does not matter. It matters the rest of the year. For example, you can use summer plots to build a deer herd. But if you have no food plots in the fall, it's all for naught. You build a deer herd, the deer leave, they get shot somewhere else. You don't have a good hunt or a quality herd. So it only matters what happens in the fall, regardless of what kind of positive contribution you make during the summertime. So if you have weeds, you just failed. We have food plots out here. There's one strip in particular, because we had a screening type of cane last year that covers up area that doesn't allow the chemical to get into the weeds. Weeds grow up around, and from under that, they can't soak in and kill those. Then we have a strip of weeds where those where that screening blend used to be last year for 350 yards long. So now I have to go back and spray that. We have clover planted there, oats. It's going to kill all that out, but that's just coming up with our recent rains over the last 10 days. We've had 2 rains. And so now all those weeds are starting to express themselves because of the increase in moisture. You know, we got to go kill them. I don't care if I have clover and oats in there. I don't want weeds in there. We got to kill it. Now, we could till it all up 3 or 4 times throughout the summertime, set those weeds back, plant. We might have a good fall crop. But the weeds are always going to come back. And so you can do that. You burn fuel, get your tractor out there, rip up the ground, dry out the ground, and most importantly around here, in any place you have hills, you open the soil up for erosion. That's a very bad thing. We choose to use chemicals to kill weeds as sparingly as possible. We use buckwheat rotations during the summertime. My buckwheat's all planted right now. And then we use a lot of rye in the fall that comes up in the springs and helps suppress weeds. So it limits the amount of chemicals we put on the ground and the type of chemicals we have to use. Because if you have stubborn broadleafs, you have to, I've seen broadleafs 98% take over a food plot. So if you have stubborn broadleafs and say pigweed, water hemp, smartweed, those are some horrible ones. They'll take over everything. You know what's funny? Clover can take over too. So you can have clover that you don't want in the fall because it doesn't allow or give a lot of volume in a big food plot, but it's hard to kill. And so you have to be mindful of even clover, let alone the bad weeds of smartweed, pigweed, water hemp. And the list goes on and on. We can go into giant thistle, burdock. There's a lot of nasty weeds out there that are hard to kill. And so you have to take care of your weeds because they limit. You're basically planting, I've seen, and this is the average person that doesn't control their weeds effectively. You're planting 5 acres, and that means you end up with a ½ acre of actual food plot because the weeds took over. They not only took over space, but they take over the total volume that could have been grown. Your plants are smaller, they're thinner, they're weaker. And so therefore, not only do the weeds take up space, but they diminish the overall value of your crop that does remain to such an extent that you only get 10% of your food plot space. You're planting an acre, you get 1/10 of an acre. You plant 10 acres, you get an acre. The amount of resources and time and money that you spend to plant that food plot are completely wasted. You have to control your weeds. I say attack your weeds. That's the smart thing to do when it comes to food plotting, however you do it. I'd prefer to not see you rip apart your soil so you risk erosion and drying your soil, destroying that top layer of soil. That's why we do all no-till and chemicals. Even a no-till drill is good. But don't fool yourself that you can plant buckwheat in the summer, rye in the fall, and you'll just take care of your weeds because of what you're planting. You always have to take care of your weeds. Weed problems will always come in. You can't just crimp it over, roll it over, and call it a day. You have to actually control your weeds. Fertilize heavy. Don't do that. What I mean by that is fertilization to overcome addressing your soil concerns is wasted. You can put all the fertilizer out you want, but if you haven't addressed the pH or the biology of the soil through plot start like we use, or pH changing lime, adding lime, UP of Michigan, for years I added anywhere from 4 to 5 tons per acre of lime initially on my food plots. 4 to 5 tons, all bags, 50-pound bags, powdered lime, pulverized lime, most of it by hand by opening up the bag and spreading, times 8.5 acres of plots. And then every 3 years I had to add another ton to 1.5 tons to keep that pH high. So a lot of work. Bottom line is, if you don't address the pH or the soil biology, then the plants can't uptake the nutrients and use the nutrients. So you can spread all the fertilizer you want. It's never going to overtake, not even close. It's not even going to be a possibility if you don't change the soil biology and the pH of that soil first. Change that, then add fertilizer. You're better off using no fertilizer at all and addressing your pH and the soil biology through plot start that we use than adding any fertilizer at all. You have to address that first. And then a lot of people think, oh, just add a bunch of fertilizer. It's not the way it works. Ignore labels. Make sure you look at your germination rates. Look and see. We've seen switchgrass as low as 41% germination. That means you buy 10 pounds of switchgrass, you just got a great deal. Quote, great deal because you paid half of a quality blend, but you find out that only 40% of the bag actually will germinate. That's the germination rate. They put it right, they have to legally put it right on the label. We know that from being in the seed business. Soft seed counts on switchgrass. Soft seed is what's available right away. Hard seed is what's going to germinate in the future. Inert matter, debris, weed seed, coating. You know, a lot of seed companies and their clover blends, they coat the seed with lime to the tune of about 30% so that they can buy less seed because lime is very cheap. And as we just talked about, you need tons of lime, 4 to 5 tons of lime per acre, 2 tons, 1 ton, not 3 pounds per acre that they add in a bag of clover. Why do they add it in the clover? Not that it does anything. They call it coating. It's because they just cut the amount of seed they need in the bag by 3 pounds, so 30%, and that improves profit margins. That's why they did it. Read your labels, folks. There's a lot of reasons read your labels. Don't put ryegrass in there. Ryegrass is way different than fall rye, winter rye. Fall rye, winter rye is a grain. Looks like a little piece of rice. Ryegrass is a grass seed. Companies put that in just so that something green pops up in the soil. It's a noxious weed. You can't get rid of it, but there's green. So they just made you think that you did a great job when you really didn't. So look at your labels. Instead, pay for quality. A lot of places dictate where you buy that. You can name some big box stores where you can buy seed. Probably not where you're going to find quality because you have to cut costs so much to meet profit margins to be able to sell it in that box store that they're going to have very poor quality seed blends. You know, we have a dealer. we don't need dealers for our seed blend. We are happy with all the sales that you guys give us online for our WHS Wildlife blends. But we have one dealer, and it's someone that I've been going to for chemicals and seed since the mid-2000s, so a very long time, almost 20 years. It's crazy to think it's been that long, but Nelson Agri Center. They're in Viroqua and they're in Prairie du Chien. They carry our seed. The owners there contacted us, said, hey, we'd really like to carry your seed. And we were honored that they wanted us to come. They're our one dealer we have because we can offer someone local, so you don't have to pay in shipping. You just go over there. They have a lot of our seed, most of our seed blends. Pretty cool dealer to have. High quality company though. They sell high quality seed, high quality materials, high quality feed and seed. It's a hardware store, Ace Hardware. So pretty rentals, everything. It's a great place, but it's quality. Completely different than some of the box stores. I won't even name names on those box stores. You can all figure out where they're at. I would say in general, if they sell groceries at your big box store, maybe not a good spot to buy food plot seed. One way to look at it. Buy buzzwords. Don't do that. What's a buzzword? Sugar beets. Buzzword. Austrian winter peas. Austrian winter peas are great. But a lot of times in a mix, there's so few peas, there might be one pea every 30 feet. They just put that on the bag to get you to buy their seed. Austrian winter peas, a full acre of just straight peas is 300 pounds per acre. So if they only have 7 pounds per acre, you're literally getting one seed every 30 feet. Not a lot, not appreciable. They just sucked your money because you bought buzzwords. Sugar beets. Sugar beets need to be planted at a completely different time than most brassica blends. So they're not going to mount to anything. The deer eat them out of the ground. They don't offer any volume. You have kale, canola. Those are huge brassicas in a blend that turn white and stay unattractive the entire winter, and they rot in the spring. See it time and time again. Now, if you're in upstate New York, UP of Michigan, northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, areas that are extremely wooded, maybe even an area in Kentucky where there's no ag land, just big woods, and your food plot's it's the only thing that's there. Well, they might eat that down to the dirt because it's all that's there. But if you get into normal mixed ag, normal food plot settings, I see a lot of that rot in the spring. In fact, we had to clear shooting lanes through it with a bad blend 2 years ago. We had to literally clear shooting lanes so we could muzzle hunt out of redneck blind because we had this garbage kale or canola, whichever one it was, doesn't matter, collards, that were 4 or 5 feet high, and it was blocking deer that were on the back side of it. So we ran the side-by-side out through them in spokes just to get that stuff out of the way so we could actually shoot at deer when they came in, because it wasn't food. It was just dead stems, no different than sticks sticking up, but they look good. Fall, they'll give you 4 feet of growth. You say, wow, that's the best plant I've ever had. That's awesome. Sunflowers, sun hemp. Sun hemp, people can brag about the nutrients it pulls from the ground. Very attractive, it's stiff. Some people even use it in their screening blends. That's another story. Deer eat sun hemp down to the dirt. So it doesn't matter what it can offer if it's not there, growing. There's a lot of different blends that have 15, 20 seeds. If you see 10 to 12 seeds or more in a blend, other than a pollinator blend, something for wildlife, really avoid that blend, because they're just putting seeds in there with buzzwords designed to take your money, take your time ultimately, and your potential success, and wash it down the tubes. Instead, buy strategy. I'll take layered rye, winter rye, fall rye, at 100 pounds the end of August, 100 pounds mid-September, 100 pounds early October in most food plots, in most locations. And we'll do better than a lot of those mixes that you have in the big box stores because it'll fit the soil, they'll grow. It's very resistant to browse pressure. And I'm not saying that's what I'd recommend to plant in a lot of situations. The bottom line is, it's not necessarily about the seed and how attractive the green is. Again, is that food plot located in the right spot? Are you spooking deer off it? Is it next to the neighbor's house that spooks deer off it? Are you putting that food there that's putting deer ultimately during daylight on someone else's land? Can you not hunt it? Is your blind right in the middle of it and you spook deer every time you get in and out? Are you displacing buck bedding because of it? You have to follow the strategy first and then plant second. Number 5, the more you spend, the better the plot. The more you spend on fertilizer, the bigger the tractor, the bigger the crimper, the bigger the seed drill, the more money you spent, the better you're going to do, right? Most likely, 90% of the time, the worse you're going to do. Because you're probably going to follow recipes that don't actually lead to the strategy of success. A lot of people that do that think that they can just spend money and that's going to buy them everything. That's not the case. We'll outperform them with an ATV and a handheld spreader, ATV sprayer, and no-tilling equipment because we'll plant the right food at the right time with the right label on it, the right seeds, following the strategies that we teach on this channel, and ultimately the strategies I teach in my food plot web course. That's, Dylan, I think 30 videos?
Yeah.
It's right around 30.
It's got to be close, yeah.
Right around 30 videos. It's a long one. But there's a lot of videos that's designed to teach you how to not only plant food plots correctly, but more importantly, the strategy of food plots, because that's what comes first. So make sure you follow the do's and don'ts here, and make sure that you're on track this year with your food plots. Again, I want to see you have a 95% chance of success before you plant, not a 100% chance of failure after you plant and you wasted your good earned dollars. I mean, heck, we have to earn our time to do a lot of this stuff too. When we go out and food plot and work on our property, and I want to make sure you're headed in the right direction for this fall, so you can look back and say, wow, we did that, I learned this worked, let's add to it, let's improve it. And that's what I started doing back in the mid-90s when it comes to food plotting. You can bet I've learned along the way, and that's where experience is always the best teacher. I learned that long ago, whether it was shooting archery, fishing, whatever it might be, deer hunting. I learned from people with vast decades more experience than I did doing it right. It wasn't that, well, I've been a fisherman for 40 years. Well, show me what you catch. How often do you catch it and how often do you go? Then you listen to them. And that way you avoid failures. You avoid wasting money, wasting your time. And I encourage you to find that experience, find a source, and we try to provide that for you, that'll lead you down the path to success, because food plotting, there's so many different variables out there and entities trying to pull you in all these different directions. And I feel for you sometimes because you have to wade through a lot of garbage, but come to the right place. Hope it helps out. I appreciate your comments down below, and thank you for watching. Really appreciate you coming to the channel, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hey folks, I really appreciate you watching, and I want to invite you to check out our main website, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. I'm going to miss all these, but we have seed to offer, hats, articles, web classes, books, consultations, and even a new podcast. I think we have 17 podcasts out there right now for you to listen to. So we have a lot to offer. Most of all, if you don't want to buy anything, I'm going to keep offering free videos, free articles. We have over 600 articles on the site. And most of all, thank you very much for watching, reading, listening, being a part of Whitetail Habitat Solutions. If you want to check this stuff out, awesome. Links are in the description.